Cat, what are you doing in there? Get out of there. Alright. Build a better Bruiser. The world will be the path to your door. Hey there, folks. Chuck here. And we're back. So, yeah, I gave a little update about what's been going on in my life in the unboxing video that I uploaded recently. So I'm gonna skip all of that and get straight to the build. I will say thank you to everybody who has asked about me and wondered when I'll be back. The short answer is I will be shooting to have one episode a month up and maybe do some mini episodes of off-camera builds to provide some content and some updates, and I'll be posting more on Flying Valiant Instagram. So if you want to follow my builds over there, you can do that as well. But I'll still be posting videos over here. So now that bit of business is out of the way, on to the build. This is one of the few Hot Wheels fantasy cars that I really like, and it is the Cruise Bruiser, introduced by Hot Wheels in 2016 and designed by Dmitry Shakhmatov. There we go. It's a fantasy car, but it's very clearly based on a 1974 AMC Ambassador, which is one of my favorite Malaise era cars, and as a sucker for Demolition Derby cars, I appreciate a casting that has been purpose-built for Demolition Derbies. I'm looking at you, Johnny Lightning. I wanted to build this car for the Deep Junk Racing challenge that was 2 months ago now. The challenge from Deep Junk Garage was to build your own car with a unique racing livery. So while this might seem a little narcissistic in design and execution, it was for a design challenge to design a livery based on your channel or your brand or whatever. So that's the story behind that. My apologies to Deep Junk Garage for being incredibly late for this, but hey, life happens, and I wanted to do this video anyway because I worked really hard on this car and I tried a lot of new things, and I wanted to show off my progress. So sit back, relax, and let's boogie. And here we are drilling. Again, I'm not going to go over the drilling because I am a rank amateur and there are people doing it way better. I highly recommend Wild Bill's Workshop for a great series of tutorials on customizing diecast cars, and I will link to his channel in the description below, so be sure to check his channel out and give him a subscription. This was a pretty clean process getting this one drilled out and tapped, and it's funny because, of course, after this one went so cleanly, I ended up only using one of the posts, and you'll see why later. And here's the aircraft stripper. Did an amazing job of very quickly and cleanly getting all of the tampos and paint off in one swoop. Didn't even need to scuff it, just dunked it in, and man, is this stuff nasty. Do not use aircraft stripper unless you have a very well ventilated place. I had a garage with an open door with a fan going to blow all the fumes out of there, and it was still intense. And a dip into the phosphoric acid for a quick polish. Again, I'm realizing this is overkill. You're probably not going to see this on too many more future builds because I like to use opaque paints, and really what I'm doing here is more treatment for a Spectraflame. And that's what happens when you don't have a good grip on your car. You fling it across the room. The top inner chassis was a two-piece chassis, but the top part was chromed, and that was easily taken care of with a blast of oven cleaner. And now for the part of the show where Chuck learns an important lesson, and that lesson is there's a big difference between a scroll saw and a jeweler saw. And I had a scroll saw, and what I really need to separate body panels is a jeweler saw, and that scroll saw was not working for me at all. So I switched to this micro saw that is a really handy little attachment that goes into your X-Acto knife holder, and I alternated between it and the scroll saw, which again was way too big to be doing what I needed to do. I'm still not sure how I was able to finally get all this done. It took way too long, and it was all just a blur of white rage by the time I was done with it. My base coat of choice, Railroad Tie Brown, was the initial cover for the top of the chassis. This is a technique that I was really excited to try out with 1/64th scale. It's something that I had learned from my 124 or 125 scale days, and that's to simulate dents by using the foil from the top of a wine bottle. The benefits of using wine foil is that it's a very thick foil, So it's very easy to manipulate still because aluminum is very soft, but it's sturdy enough that it will hold up as a display model. So I was eager to try this out, and because these cars are still very small, and I know that eventually I'm going to be picking them up and moving them around, I did want to have a little bit of a rigid backing to the dents that I was making. So I took a page from Diecast Car Guy for Life, Stanley Morgan's tutorial on making dents out of paper, and instead of a mix of glue and water and paper over the car to create the dents, I decided to do the same thing but with foil, and I'm pretty happy with the results. Let me know what you think of this technique in the comments below. I used some old parchment craft paint to paint the seat. Not a lot's going to be visible, especially in the front part of this car because of the roll cage, but I did want the seat to stand out, so I went with a light color and then went over it in my homemade brown wash mix. I didn't really intend to mess with the motor much. I was pretty happy with how it looked. It just needed a little more realism added to it. So I opened up the straight pipes a bit using my pin vise, which I don't know why it's called a pin vise. It's not a pin and it's not a vise. It's a hand drill, but okay, pin vise it is. And my Tamiya weathering powders to give a little hint of floor wear and weathering to the base, even though, again, you're not really going to see it in the finished product, but I'm doing it because I'm making a video of it and I want you to see that I care about details. Please notice that I care about details. The radiator, I wanted to give it a good weathered copper / leaky antifreeze look, so I had this patina green weathering powder that was really handy for that. I gave the pipes a coating of stainless. I wanted them to look fairly dull though, so I went over them with some weathering rust and darkened the tips, and I tried to vary the application on each pipe so that they looked more individual. I even took an X-Acto knife down each channel of the pipes to deepen them a little bit and help them stand out a little more. I love this ATSF red. It's a good faded red. It's almost like a tomato color, and it really works well for weathered builds as being something that it does a good job of a faded dark red that doesn't pop too much on a small scale build. I was kind of freestyling here, but I really liked how the red looked on the roll cage, so I decided to do the bumpers here. I really didn't have a clear vision of where I was going just yet. I knew my logo is red, orange, and yellow, so I tend to veer towards Evel Knievel style in my designs. I decided these pipes were just a little too uniform still, so I cut a bigger distance between the pipes and gave a few of them nicks and bends so they would look a little less uniform and a little more like something that was cobbled together for a demolition derby. Typhus corrosion does a good job of easily making things look like corroded, crusty steel, which you see a lot of in demolition derby cars. Again, I still wasn't satisfied with the pipes, so I went back over them to help each one stand out a little more. I wanted to make sure the anchor in the back stood out. I thought that was a really clever addition by Dimitri, what's his name. So I made sure that the anchor looked like a good rusty anchor, and I went over it a few different times to make it pop. Once I had the interior and the chassis satisfactorily put together, I gave it a shot of matte clear from Vallejo to help it stand out. And while I was working on the car, it hit me that the back of the station wagon had these neat ridges built into it, and those looked kind of like stripes. And as I mentioned earlier, I really like the Evel Knievel livery, so I wanted to borrow a little from that and add some stars and stripes to the design, and this back was just screaming to have red and white stripes on it. So I took that ATSF red and thinned it a little, and it went on very cleanly for 15-plus-year-old paint. I matched the off-white that I had mixed for the rest of the car and did some touch-ups, and then added the stripes on the top. Fortunately, they were very bold stripes, so it wasn't that hard to practically dry brush on the white stripes. And then touch them up again with ATSF red, because I am a hack and a fraud and really don't know what I'm doing. But I'm doing my best. Please notice that I'm doing my best. And then it came time to pick the wheels. I had this Johnny Lightning off-road wheel set that I bought a while back, and I wanted to use a couple of those for the back, and I had the 2 extra wheels from the Anglia build where I used 6 wheels. So it was a perfect match for this build where I wanted to have narrow, skinny wheels in the front and off-road tires in the back. Then it came time to put all the pieces together, and here's where things got a little ugly because the one fender that was supposed to be solid snapped because I forgot that the stuff is made of the cheapest metal available, and I had to glue that one back in place and then refit everything around the front. And during all that, I ended up snapping one of the headlight rigs off the front, and then I remembered, oh yeah, this is a Demolition Derby car. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to keep going. So I glued it all on. I used my Gundam brown marker to bring out the door panel lines, and actually went back over it with the black marker because I wasn't really satisfied with how the brown looked, and the mixture of the brown and black actually worked really well together. So then it came time for the stars part of the roof, and I just grabbed a star off of Google. I found some fun fonts, and I found some fun novelty license plates, and made myself plenty of spares because I make a lot of mistakes, as I've pointed out earlier. And again, shout out to my amazing brother Justin for designing the Flying Valiant logo. You can actually buy the Flying Valiant logo on just about anything you can think of at his TeePublic link, which is in the description below. It's really cool that he provided this for me, and he does a lot of really amazing spec work, especially for people in the car culture. So if you ever want to hire him for work, I highly recommend it. I also gave my buddy Colin, or JC as he goes now, a shout out by using his logo for his auto parts store in Oklahoma as a sponsor, and his logo is also designed by my brother Justin. Like I said, he does good work, and he gets hired because of it. The decal process was pretty straightforward. I used clearback inkjet decals because I had a white-ish background, and that worked out really well. I know that a real Demolition Derby car would not have taillights, but I really liked these little dot taillights that they put on the back of this car, so I wanted to make sure they stayed. Gave them some Molotov, not Molotov. Thank you, Wild Bill, for pointing out that I said it wrong. Once everything is done with a matte clear, I will go over them again with the red so that the red doesn't get dulled by the matte coat. I wanted my Demolition Derby car to look like it was mid-match or between races, so that meant it would have accumulated a significant amount of mud and dust. And I really didn't want the mud and dust to look painted on. I really wanted it to have a texture, so I got some of this wilder, light textured earth paint. It's kind of a gritty paint mix, and it does a really good job of simulating scale, mud, and texture and build up. And it's a little tricky to work with, but it really helps add dimension and depth to a build. It's really popular with the armor building crowd, and I'm trying to incorporate more armor style building techniques into my builds because those guys are really, really good at weathering stuff, and I really want to be good at weathering cars. So it's kind of fun to take their techniques and translate them to scale diecast. I matched the texture because I didn't want to go too overboard with it, with some gritty gray powder to kind of bring the dust and grime up on the car without making it look like it was just completely covered in mud. It was a tricky balance to find, but I think it turned out okay. I'd love to hear your thoughts on using this technique in the comments. Let me know what you think. At this point, it was really down to the final details, making sure that I was satisfied with how the whole car tied together, covering up the halos on the decals and all that stuff. And like I said, here's the final dabs of the transparent red over the chrome to get those taillights a good pop. The footage of me putting the decal on and signing the 0004 was corrupted, but it did get applied. One more time, here's a quick look at what we had before, the 94-cent Cruise Bruiser in its 2019 art car form. It's kind of a shame that they would do this to what is otherwise a really unique and fun casting. I really like the early versions of this casting where it looked much more like a real demo derby car. So I'm hoping I can maybe find one of those someday, and I'll just put it on the shelf because there's really nothing that needs to be done to it. I might weather it a little. I can't leave stuff alone. And here's what we ended up with. I really liked how this car came out, and not just because I like seeing my own logo on things, although that's nice too. But I'm really happy with the end result. It has the right level of grit and grime that I was looking for without being completely overpowering. I was really happy with how the foil turned out for recreating dents in scale. If anything, it drew attention to how odd the Dremeled dents looked on the car. So it was kind of a good measure for me to work on when I Dremel dents to try and make them look a little more like the way the metal looked and crumpled on the foil. And probably just a good reminder for me to pay more close attention to source material, which if you're looking for source material, the Ratty Muscle Cars page on Facebook is amazing. If you're looking for good examples of weathered but still roadworthy cars, I've downloaded literally thousands of photos from their Facebook page to use for inspiration on future builds. There were a lot of really cool builds made for the Deep Junk Garage Challenge. I highly recommend you check out his channel and give him a subscribe. His stuff is really cool. And there are a lot of really talented people out there that are participating in challenges and can stick to deadlines. And their stuff is really worth checking out as well. I am going to continue to work on my own deadlines and create stuff as I have time and as I'm available. And as I figure out what my availability is between my new job and my family responsibilities and helping out my friends and family as they're dealing with all of the stuff that your friends and family are dealing with. So stay safe out there. I appreciate you coming along with me for the ride. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the videos, and I'll have another one up when it's ready and not a moment before. So once again, I appreciate you coming along with me for the ride. So until next time, stay fresh, cheese bags.